What do you do when you think that you've made incredible progress in your life, spiritually, mentally, everything with your journey, and then you get put through a test and you fail? That is what we're going to talk about today. Hi, welcome to the channel. This is I'd Rather Be a Buffalo. This is a show that is dedicated to helping you get through the storms of life with God's help, to help you grow deeper in your relationship with God, and to also find out what God's purpose is in your life. My name is Kevin Gregg. Thanks for joining us. So, at the time that I'm recording this, I live in Los Angeles, and we've had all of the wildfires that have happened here in January. It's kind of crazy. We did well, thank God. We've had friends and family that have been impacted by this. So please, I ask you to pray for the people of Los Angeles, pray for the firefighters and first responders that are out there helping our city here in Southern California. Um, but there were a couple of scares. There were a couple of times where some fires got a little bit close, and it looked like we were going to have to go into standby or to get out, and that wasn't the case, thank God. Um, but here's the thing: the interesting thing being back in this feeling of I don't know what's going to happen, standby, you're very tense. Uh, it started bringing up a lot of the feelings and experiences that I had personally during COVID, where it felt like you're in another one of these unknown times, right? And standing by and not sure what's going to happen, and so much stuff that's out of your control. And for me, a lot of personal feelings that were coming up about, you know, certain decisions that are happening on a more managerial level or governmental area level where you're just so much stuff that's out of my control and all of these feelings coming up. And the thing that happened for me with that, when I was looking back at it, was, here we went through all of this stuff that happened in 2020 and 2021. And a lot of those feelings and muck and frustration and anger and resentment and all of those things that came up. And I found myself starting to feel a lot of those same feelings again, right? And it was just this moment of going, especially when I was in reflection and thinking about it and in prayer and talking to other men in men's groups that I'm involved in. It's just this feeling of like, it doesn't feel like there's been much growth here, Kevin, right? And I'm sure that you may have experienced something like this in your life, where you feel like, you know what? I went through a rough patch. I went through a hard time in my life, but I've grown. I've gotten so many tools in my tool belt. I'm ready to rock and roll. And then all of a sudden, the first test or challenge comes along your way, and it just feels like, yeah, I haven't learned anything, right? Now, is that the case with the situation that I had here over the last week? No, no, right? I mean, did I here's the things I will say positively on my side. Was this causing me to, spiral down into a deep depression and, a period of inactivity or anything like that? I remember specifically during COVID where it would just feel so oppressive. I've talked about this before, but I would literally get to, and it's probably happened 3 times during the COVID thing. I would literally be walking around the house and then I would just like lie down flat on the ground with my face on the ground, just like feeling just worn out and just like there's so much that I couldn't control. I did not get to that point with these fires that were happening in Southern California. But again, the feelings were very reminiscent. So the thing that comes up is, and I'm grateful for the experience because it gives me the opportunity to go, gotcha, Lord. There are some areas in my life where I've still not fully given up to you, or there's areas of my life where I'm still kind of falling down and it's so frustrating. I can see this happen with, guys who are in recovery programs that they get so frustrated where they feel like, they get a certain level of sobriety behind them under their belts, all of a sudden you have a fall, right? You have a fall and you just feel like, well, that's it. I've blown it. It's all over. What's the point? There's a couple of things. Number one is that we're continuing on this journey and that it's not supposed to be, it's not going to be perfect all the way through. It's not perfect because we're dealing with sin in the world. We're dealing with so much stuff that we can't control. We cannot control the actions of others, how others are going to think or speak or do any of that stuff. We can control how we respond to it. And maybe these moments that come up in your life when something sort of blindsides you or you feel like you've just been put through a test and you have immediately failed it, right? It could be you losing your temper. You're trying to like learn how to manage your anger, manage your emotions, and all of a sudden something happens and it just sets you off and you have an explosion, right? Okay. So part of that is to recognize, all right, I got it wrong. I fell. Lord, I'm sorry, right? Like this is a great thing that especially exists in Catholicism where you're able to, you know, say your act of contrition or be able to go to the sacrament of reconciliation and to be able to talk to this to go, God, I got it wrong, right? And part of this is about recognizing that you're getting it wrong. You can take a look into it and say, what's causing this? What's happening for me? Now I'll tell you some of those feelings that were coming up for me, and maybe some of this resonates with you. Some of the things that happened for me wasn't in a great routine with my prayer or scripture reading, right? Now, I go to Mass on a weekly basis, and I do have a prayer routine that I do every day, and I do have men's groups that I'm involved in. But I will tell you, the weeks kind of leading up to it, a little bit all over the place, right? Not as not as diligent or as faithful, particularly in the mornings with morning prayer that I could be doing, and spending that time with God. So there were certain things that were there that I wasn't doing that may have led to it. Now, here's the thing. The great thing that happens is that God just doesn't leave us there. He just doesn't leave us in that muck, right? I always use that example of like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2, right? When the T2 comes in and he's getting Sarah Connor out of this mental institution, and she thinks that he's come back as the whatever T100 to kill her, and she's like freaking out. And instead, we find out at that moment in the film, he's actually there to rescue her. And he leans down, she's on the floor looking up at him in terror. And he puts his hand out and says, "Come with me if you want to live," right? Jesus is doing that with us all the time. He's literally saying, "Come with me if you want to live. Let's get back up," right? And Jesus modeled this on the way of the cross as he was going up to Calvary to be crucified. His falls, the three falls that we recognize in the stations of the cross, of the fact of him falling down and yet getting back up, right? Even through the midst of that pain and that suffering, because he knew what the final mission was. The mission wasn't for him to die of, you know, exhaustion and blood loss and trauma on the way. It ultimately had to lead to that humiliation that happened on the cross. But even in the midst of that, he keeps getting up, keeps getting up. And the situation that you may be dealing with is not going to be as extreme as that. But there are going to be things where you want to relapse into feelings of what's the point? I always get this wrong. I always blow this. You have to be careful with that because you don't want Satan to be able to get in and to cause a split and separation between you and God. And he can do it. He can do it with any sort of negative self talk or deridement or anything that you have for yourself. Don't stay there, right? He's calling you. He's calling you to invite him into the situation. You have to make the first step, though. And part of that first step that happens with this is simple ways that you can do it. Prayer, is an easy one. If you can't find the simplest prayer that you can say is help. Help, Lord. I don't know. I'm getting this wrong or I'm feeling this way. I need your help. That's the simplest prayer that you could do. If you can't find the words yourself, find another prayer that's out there. Find a prayer that's written for times of sorrow or frustration or anxiety or any of that other stuff. Ask God for help. Find those prayers. They are out there. Then get yourself into Scripture. Get yourself into the Bible. Start reading Scripture. Start whatever. And there's so many resources online. There's so many resources online. Whether you do it through the Bible app or the Hallow app or I don't know, Exodus 90 is one of the things I'm involved in as well. Whatever that is, find it. There's going to be some type of scripture reading or plan or something like that that deals with the feelings that you're going through and read the word. Read the word. Get into the word. Um, and then the other thing that you can do also is if you go on YouTube, I guarantee you that there's some spiritual leaders that may be talking about some of the feelings that you have. You can find a priest or a minister or somebody that's out there, a spiritual leader that is talking about how to get through challenging circumstances. How do I get back up when I've fallen down, right? So many great teachers that are out there. You could find it with Father Mike Schmitz, Bishop Robert Barron, Rick Warren, Francis Chan, all of these. There's so many great resources that are out there. Take a look. Take a look. Somebody's out there that can help get you through this. The biggest thing is don't stay down in the muck. Don't negatively berate yourself and allow Satan to get um, any any traction in your mind, heart, or soul to keep you off that path. Because we're working on getting you better and getting back up and taking Jesus's hand as he puts it out there and says, "Come with me if you want to live." Grab that opportunity and get back up so you can do it. You don't have to stay. You don't have to stay down there. It's part of this challenge, man, and part of this journey that you're on. Um, God's doing something wonderful in your life. He's refining you. He's strengthening you. He's working out areas of your life where you might have it wrong. Um, Trust him. Trust him. Because as you're working it out, the lessons that you learn along the way are also going to be things that you're going to be able to turn around and share it with others that are behind you. Okay. Hey, thanks for listening to this. Can you please do me a favor? If you found this helpful, like, subscribe, share this video with other people that you think might benefit from it. Um, and I'll see you back here for the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.